You have been lied to your entire life, deceived by a world that tells you to wait for motivation, to wait for that spark, for some divine bolt of inspiration to strike you before you move, before you act, before you build. But let me tell you now, motivation is a phantom, it is an illusion, it is a thief that robs men of time, of energy, of opportunity, and the men who succeed, the ones whose names echo through history: Andrew Carnegie, Henry Ford, Thomas Edison, John D. Rockefeller, Charles Schwab. They did not wait for inspiration. They obeyed law. They issued commands to themselves. They wrote their aim, and they made that aim an unbreakable law that their mind, their body, their identity obeyed without question. For a man without a clear written aim is a man adrift, tossed by every wind of distraction, every current of opinion, every fleeting desire. And the reason so many men speak of ambition yet achieve so little is not lack of energy, not lack of intelligence, not lack of opportunity, but lack of law, lack of a structure, lack of written command. And I tell you now, the first step to transformation is not feeling inspired. It is writing, speaking, repeating, burning into your subconscious the law of your aim until it becomes as real as the beat of your heart, until it bends your thought, shapes your emotion, directs your action, until you no longer need to ask yourself, what shall I do today? Because the answer is already written, already spoken, already known. And the universe itself begins to bend around your repeated law. Because thought that is repeated with emotion, that is written and obeyed, is a force more powerful than money, more powerful than luck, more powerful than connections. And so you must write it now, your definite chief aim, not vaguely, not casually, not as a hope, but as a command, as a declaration, as a law to which your mind, your body, your subconscious must bend without argument. Morning and night, repeated aloud, spoken with intensity, felt in the chest. And let me tell you, when you do this, when you obey this first law, you will feel energy return, not the fickle surge of emotion, not the temporary rush of excitement, but the permanent current of focus, the inexhaustible power of a mind directed, a mind aligned, a mind that knows where it is going and refuses to wander. And you will understand that motivation is irrelevant because you have built identity, because you have built law, because you have trained your mind to obey a command greater than impulse, greater than feeling, greater than fear. And now, do not be fooled by impatience or doubt. For repetition is your ally. For repetition of writing, speaking, and embodying your aim is how Carnegie turned from an observer of life to a man whose commands reshaped industry. How Edison turned failure into 1,000 experiments that refused to break his law. How Rockefeller turned silence, focus, and removal of distraction into the wealthiest empire the world had seen. And you, yes you, are capable of the same, but only if you obey, only if you write your aim, only if you speak it aloud, only if you repeat it with faith, with force, with unflinching adherence. For the mind without aim drifts like a ship without rudder, tossed on every wave of circumstance, pulled by every external opinion, enslaved by every fleeting impulse. But the mind, with a written aim, becomes a fortress, becomes a lighthouse, becomes the magnet around which your reality revolves. And you must understand this, that aim is not a goal, it is a law. It is not something you hope for, it is something you enforce, something you obey, something that becomes your identity. And identity is the only force capable of making a man move without feeling, act without motivation, create without applause, and build without distraction. And so I command you now, take your pen, write it, speak it, repeat it, burn it into the mind. For no man can remain passive once the law of aim has entered his bones. Once he speaks it in the morning, once he reads it at night, once he feels it in every breath. For the law will demand action. The law will silence excuses. The law will replace hesitation with certainty, delay with execution, drift with command. And you will begin to understand why men like Ford did not wait to feel enthusiasm to assemble automobiles, why Edison did not wait to feel ready to invent the electric light, why Carnegie did not wait for applause to direct his empire, why Schwab did not wait to feel confidence to run steel. For all of them had written aims that became the silent engines of their lives, the unspoken commands that carried them forward when emotion failed, when energy faltered, when doubt whispered. And if you will do the same. Not tomorrow, not next week, not when you feel like it, but now. For the man who obeys law becomes unstoppable. And this is the first law: kill the myth of motivation with a written aim. For the pen is the first instrument of power. The voice is the first declaration of sovereignty. The repeated words are the hammer striking the anvil of your future, shaping the man you are becoming. And each day you rise and obey this law. You train your mind to act without emotion, to move without reason, to create without applause, and to build a life that is no longer subject to whim or distraction. And remember, a written aim is not a goal. It is a command. It is law. It is identity. It is the foundation of every empire, every disciplined man, every life that leaves a mark. And so I tell you now, speak it aloud. Burn it into your bones. Obey it morning and night. Remove distraction. Remove delay. Let repetition become your ritual. Let your identity be forged in the crucible of daily obedience. until one day you awaken to find that you no longer wait, no longer hesitate, no longer question. For your aim is law, your law is your identity, and identity is the fire that no motivation can replace. The world will tell you that life is hard, that you are limited, that energy is scarce, that motivation is necessary, that circumstances control your outcome. But all of this is designed to keep you small, to keep you passive, to prevent you from becoming the man you are meant to be. And here is the truth that few dare to say. Discipline is the weapon that cuts through weakness, the engine that drives action when emotion fails, the anchor that prevents you from being lost in every storm of desire, doubt, and distraction. For the weak man waits for feeling. The weak man looks for permission. The weak man hopes, but the disciplined man obeys law, executes plan, and repeats ritual until mastery is inevitable. And let me illustrate this with a story, a truth, a principle so simple, yet so powerful that if you ignore it, you will remain average your entire life. And that principle is this: what you do consistently, regardless of feeling, defines your destiny. And it is repetition under law, not passion under whim, that creates empires, inventions, wealth, and legacy. And look at history. George Washington did not wait to feel courage before crossing the Delaware. Winston Churchill did not wait for hope before rallying a nation under siege. Miyamoto Musashi did not wait for inspiration before perfecting the sword through relentless daily practice. Every titan, every great mind, every man who reshaped the world, built his life not on motivation, not on occasional bursts of energy, but on a daily, repeated, disciplined obedience to law, to plan, to principle, to aim. And now imagine yourself doing the same. Standing each day and committing, not because you feel like it, not because the world applauds, but because your written aim commands it, because your identity demands it, because the law of success flows through repetition, through ritual, through obedience. And understand this clearly: discipline is not punishment, discipline is not restriction. Discipline is liberation, liberation from weakness, liberation from uncertainty, liberation from the endless trap of fluctuating emotion. For the man who obeys discipline is no longer a man of chance, of circumstance, of luck. He becomes a man of inevitability, a man whose actions, whose creations, whose words, whose life flows naturally from law, from repetition, from obedience to principle. And if you think this is easy, think again. For discipline is forged in the fire of resistance, in the refusal to obey every fleeting impulse, in the daily battle against procrastination, distraction, and self-deception. And yet, the more you obey, the easier it becomes. For once the mind knows its law, once the body has been trained to act, once the identity has been established, the weight of decision disappears, the conflict of desire is resolved, and action becomes automatic, seamless, unstoppable, like a river cutting through rock, not by force of emotion but by persistence. And so you must embrace the ritual, you must embrace the schedule, you must embrace the commands you give yourself in writing, in speech, in action. For every repeated act, every ritual followed without question, every law obeyed strengthens the mind, molds the body, and elevates the soul. And now, consider the practical applications. Waking up each day at the same hour, writing and speaking your aim, executing your top priorities without delay, training your body and mind consistently, removing distractions ruthlessly, analyzing your failures without ego, celebrating your wins without arrogance, iterating, repeating, perfecting, until your daily system becomes your identity, until success is no longer a goal but the natural result of your obedience to law, until the world has no choice but to yield to the man who does not wait, who does not doubt, who does not procrastinate. And the beauty of this is that anyone can start today. For discipline is neither hereditary nor reserved for the talented. It is built with the same tools that every man has: attention, repetition, and obedience. And when you combine this with a written aim, when you combine this with the law of identity, when you combine this with removal of distraction, you create a machine, a force, a presence that no challenge can deter, no obstacle can stop, no failure can derail. For the disciplined man knows that failure is a teacher, that resistance is fuel, that hardship is a test, and that law, ritual, and repetition are the ultimate weapons. And so I tell you now, embrace discomfort, embrace resistance, embrace repetition, embrace law, for in this you will find freedom, in this you will find power, in this you will find inevitability, in this you will find yourself transformed from a man of feelings into a man of command, from a man of chance into a man of certainty, from a man drifting through life into a man shaping life. And if you commit, if you obey, if you execute, your life will never be the same. For the disciplined man is unstoppable, the disciplined man is unbreakable, the disciplined man is inevitable. And this is the second law. Discipline is your weapon, repetition is your engine, ritual is your armor, and obedience to law is the path from weakness to mastery, from chaos to order, from a life wasted to a life of meaning, impact, and legacy. And now, rise, obey, repeat, execute. For your future is not built on emotion, it is built on law, and the law never fails those who obey it.